The silence in room 304 was heavy, broken only by the hum of the air conditioner and the scratching of Sarah's red pen against a stack of essays. It was 4:45 p.m. The buses had left Northwood High an hour ago, leaving the hallways empty and echoing. Sarah preferred the quiet. It helped her maintain the facade. Sarah, the history teacher, the woman who wore beige cardigans and spoke softly about the Industrial Revolution. Not Sarah the ghost, the woman who had dismantled cartels in Juarez before her file was redacted. She flipped the page of the next notebook. It belonged to Leo, a sophomore with anxious eyes and a brilliant mind for patterns. But this wasn't an essay on the Civil War. The pages were covered in dense, frantic scribbles, rows of numbers interrupted by geometric shapes. At first glance, it looked like boredom-induced doodling. Sarah's eyes narrowed. She didn't see doodles. She saw a modified rail fence cipher interlocked with a primitive grid coordinate system. Her pulse remained steady, it always did, but her grip on the pen tightened. Suddenly, the classroom door slammed open. Sarah didn't flinch. She looked up slowly. Leo stood there, chest heaving, his face pale and slick with sweat. He gripped the doorframe, his knuckles white. "Leo?" Sarah's voice was calm, projected perfectly. "You should be on the bus." I forgot my book," he stammered, his eyes darting to the notebook on her desk. He looked terrified. Not student terrified, target terrified. "This book?" Sarah tapped the cover. "It's interesting, Leo. The sequence on page 4. It's not random." Leo froze. "You can read it?" "I like puzzles," she said, her tone carefully neutral. "Who are you hiding this from, Leo?" Before he could answer, the PA system crackled. "Mr. Vance to the main office. Mr. Vance to the main office." The color drained from Leo's face completely. "He knows," the boy whispered. "He saw me check the inventory logs. Mrs. H, please give it to me. I have to run." "Leo, slow down." Sarah stood up, her movement fluid and predatory, though she kept her face soft. "Who's he?" "Vance? The guidance counselor?" "He's not a counselor," Leo hissed, rushing forward to snatch the notebook. "He's the broker, and if he finds out I wrote the drop locations down—" The sound of heavy boots echoed from the hallway tile, moving fast towards her door. Leo scrambled back, panic seizing him. "Hide," Sarah commanded. The authority in her voice wasn't a teacher's, it was a field commander's. Leo obeyed instantly, diving behind her heavy oak desk. Sarah sat back down, opened a textbook, and waited. The door handle turned. The door opened, but it wasn't Vance. It was Officer Miller, the school's resource officer, a bulky man with a buzz cut who treated the high school like a prison yard. He scanned the room, his hand resting casually, too casually, on his belt near his taser. "Working late, Miss H?" Miller asked, stepping inside. He didn't look at her. He was scanning the corners of the room. "Midterms, officer," Sarah said, not looking down from her grading. "Did you need something?" "Saw a kid running this way. Leo Corwin. Little guy. Looks nervous. You see him?" Sarah paused for a heartbeat, calculating. If she gave Leo up, he was dead. Miller's body language was aggressive, his pupils dilated. He wasn't looking for a student. He was hunting. "I haven't seen a soul since 4th period," Sarah lied, her heart rate sitting at a resting 55 beats per minute. "Is he in trouble?" Miller stared at her, silence stretching thin. He took a step towards the desk. Sarah shifted her weight imperceptibly, preparing to drive her red pen into his jugular if he crossed the threshold of the desk. She knew exactly how much pressure it would take. "Just truancy," Miller grunted, stopping 3 feet away. "If you see him, radio the office. Don't approach him. He's unstable." "Understood," Sarah said, offering a polite, dim smile. Miller lingered a second too long, his eyes dropping to the notebook on her desk. Sarah casually placed a completed essay on top of it. He grunted again, turned, and marched out. As soon as his footsteps faded, Sarah tapped the desk. "He's gone." Leo crawled out, trembling. "Miller is with them. He moves the product." What product? Leo asked, standing and locking the door. She moved to the window, peering through the blinds. A black SUV was idling in the faculty parking lot. Drugs? No, Leo said, his voice shaking. It's identities. They're selling social security numbers, medical records, everything from the district database. But it's worse. They aren't just selling them, they're creating fake profiles for people to enter the country. Bad people. Sarah looked at the boy. This wasn't just high school corruption. This was a federal security breach run out of a suburban high school. Give me the notebook, Leo, Sarah said, her voice dropping an octave, stripping away the nice teacher persona. I can't help you unless I know the code. Leo hesitated, then handed it over. It's encrypted with the locker combos of the expelled students from last year. Sarah opened the book. She didn't need the locker combos. She recognized the pattern immediately. It was a shifting Caesar cipher used by low-level paramilitary groups. She scanned the numbers. Tonight, 2200 hours, the boiler room, shipment 4. Go home, Leo, Sarah said. Take the back exit near the gym. Do not stop. What are you going to do? Sarah opened her bottom drawer and pulled out a flashlight and a pair of leather gloves she shouldn't have had in a classroom. I have a parent-teacher conference. The school at night was a skeleton of its daytime self. Shadows stretched long across the lockers, and the silence was heavy, oppressive. Sarah moved through the corridors with practiced silence, her sneakers making no sound on the linoleum. She had swapped her cardigan for a dark windbreaker she kept in her car. She reached the heavy steel door of the boiler room in the basement. It was locked, naturally. Sarah pulled a small tension wrench and a pick from her pocket, tools she claimed to use for fixing jammed staplers, and had the lock turned in 4 seconds. She slipped inside. The air was hot, smelling of rust and industrial cleaner. The hum of the massive furnaces masked the sound of her breathing. She moved behind a row of pipes, peering into the open clearing near the drainage sumps. 3 men were there. Officer Miller, a man in a suit she didn't recognize, and Vance, the guidance counselor. Vance looked different. Gone was the empathetic listener who handed out stress balls. He was holding a tablet, scrolling through data streams. The transfer is complete, Vance said, his voice echoing off the concrete. The new identities are active. We have 5 students arriving on the bus tomorrow morning. They'll bypass customs completely. And the boy? Asked Miller, leaning against a pillar. He's a loose end, Vance replied coldly. He encrypted the ledger. If he talks, the entire network collapses. Find him tonight. Make it look like an overdose. Sarah's eyes narrowed. Human trafficking masked as student transfers. It was brilliant. The school system was the perfect cover. Nobody questioned paperwork for new students in a transient district. She needed evidence. She pulled out her phone, ensuring the flash was off, and aimed it through the gap in the pipes. She recorded Vance tapping the screen, capturing the list of names and the layout of the operation. Suddenly, a rat skittered across the pipe above her, knocking a loose bolt onto the concrete floor. Clang! The sound was like a gunshot in the quiet room. Hold up, Miller barked, drawing his weapon. We're not alone. Sarah didn't panic. She assessed her surroundings. 3 hostiles, 1 armed with a firearm, 2 likely carrying concealed weapons. She was unarmed, save for the flashlight. She needed a distraction. She spotted the steam pressure valve for the auxiliary heater 3 feet to her left. Check the shadows, Vance ordered, stepping back. Sarah moved, not away, but toward the valve. She gripped the wheel and wrenched it open. A jet of scalding steam hissed into the room, creating an instant wall of white fog. The men shouted, covering their faces. "My eyes! Damn it!" Miller yelled, firing a blind shot into the mist. The bullet pinged harmlessly off a pipe. Sarah dropped low, moving beneath the steam layer. She didn't run for the door, that's what a scared teacher would do. She sprinted toward the fire alarm on the far wall. She slammed the handle down. The piercing shriek of the alarm filled the basement, accompanied by the strobing white lights. Chaos. "Kill the alarm! Get the back exit!" Vance screamed. Sarah used the confusion to slip into the adjacent storage cage, climbing the metal shelving to reach a ventilation grate she had noted on the school blueprints months over. Old habits died hard. She always mapped her exits. She kicked the grate loose and hauled herself up just as Miller's flashlight swept the spot where she had been standing. She crawled through the dust-choked vent, emerging in the cafeteria storage closet. She dusted herself off, checked her phone. The video was clear. She had the proof. But she couldn't leave, not yet. Vance had mentioned 5 students arriving on the bus. If she went to the police now, Vance would scrub the servers before a warrant could be issued. The local police were slow, and Miller was a cop. She needed to sever the link. She exited the closet and ran toward the server room on the 2nd floor. She had to upload the virus she kept on an encrypted drive on her keychain, a digital kill switch she had written years ago for emergencies. She rounded the corner near the library and stopped dead. Standing at the end of the hall was the principal, Mrs. Gable. She looked confused, wearing a coat over her pajamas, clearly responding to the alarm. "Sarah?" Mrs. Gable asked, blinking in the strobe lights. "What on earth are you doing here?" Sarah hesitated. "Mrs. Gable, we have a situation. Vance and Miller are running a trafficking ring out of the basement." Mrs. Gable stared at her. Then, slowly, she sighed. "Oh, Sarah, I really wish you hadn't found that out." Mrs. Gable reached into her purse. She didn't pull out a phone. She pulled out a suppressed pistol. Sarah realized her mistake instantly. The corruption didn't stop at the counselor. It went to the top. "Into the library, Sarah," Mrs. Gable commanded, raising the gun. "Now." Sarah walked backward into the library, her hands raised slightly. Her mind was racing. Mrs. Gable, the sweet woman who brought donuts on Fridays? The suppression on the pistol was professional grade. This wasn't a local gang. This was a syndicate. "I always thought there was something off about you," Gable said, following her in and kicking the door shut. The fire alarm continued to wail, muffling their voices. "You're too observant, too quiet. Who are you really? Internal Affairs? FBI?" "Just a history teacher," Sarah said, backing up until her legs hit a study table. "A history teacher who moves like a phantom," Gable scoffed. "Vance wanted to kill the boy. I told him to handle it quietly. Now look at this mess." "You're bringing terrorists into the country using student visas." "Mercenaries," Gable corrected. "Specialists. They pay a premium for clean identities. The school board sees increased enrollment funding. I see a retirement fund, and the world keeps turning. Why do you care?" "I don't like bullies," Sarah said. Her hand drifted behind her back, fingers brushing the heavy metal tape dispenser on the table. "Goodbye, Sarah." Gable tightened her finger on the trigger. Sarah didn't wait. She grabbed the tape dispenser and hurled it, not at Gable, but at the fire extinguisher mounted on the wall next to Gable's head. The heavy steel dispenser hit the extinguisher's safety pin mechanism with a loud crack, dislodging the mount. The extinguisher fell, smashing onto the floor and rupturing the valve. A cloud of chemical suppressant exploded outward. Gable flinched, firing a shot wild into the ceiling. Sarah vaulted the table. She closed the distance in 2 strides. She wasn't a teacher anymore. She was a weapon. She controlled Gable's wrist, twisting it outward until the bone snapped. Gable screamed, dropping the gun. Sarah swept Gable's legs, driving her into the carpet. She knelt on the principal's back, securing the woman's good arm. "Who else is coming?" Sarah whispered into Gable's ear. "Go to hell," Gable spat. Wrong answer. Sarah applied pressure. "The cleanup crew. They're 5 minutes out. They'll burn the school down with you inside." Sarah grabbed the gun and stood up. She zip-tied Gable's hands with a computer cord. She checked the magazine. 12 rounds. She went to the library window. Headlights were flooding the front lawn. 3 black vans. The cleanup crew wasn't here to scrub data. They were here to eliminate witnesses. Sarah looked at her reflection in the glass. The cardigan was torn, her hair was messy, but her eyes were cold. "Class is in session," she muttered. Sarah dragged Mrs. Gable into the AV storage room and locked it. "Stay quiet and you might live." She moved to the hallway. The fire alarm finally cut off, leaving the school in an eerie, ringing silence. The front doors shattered inward. Glass sprayed across the lobby. Sarah counted 6 men entering. They wore tactical vests and carried carbines. No masks. They didn't plan on leaving witnesses. She couldn't fight them head-on. She had 1 pistol and 12 bullets against automatic weapons. She needed to use the environment. This was her school. She knew every squeaky floorboard, every blind corner, every door that jammed. She retreated to the chemistry wing on the 2nd floor. "Spread out," a voice commanded from the lobby. "Find the woman. Find the boy. Burn the rest." Sarah slipped into the chemistry lab. She opened the flammable storage cabinet. Acetone, ethanol, magnesium strips. She worked fast. She poured ethanol across the floor near the doorway, creating an invisible trap. She crumbled magnesium into a beaker and set it on a Bunsen burner, rigged to a timer she fashioned from a lab clock. She moved to the prep room in the back and waited. Footsteps approached, heavy, disciplined. 2 shadows fell across the threshold of the lab. "Clear left," a mercenary whispered. The lead man stepped on the ethanol. His boots slipped on the slick surface. He flailed, crashing to the floor. "Contact!" he yelled. Sarah popped up from the prep room, firing 2 precise shots. The standing man took a round to the shoulder and spun back into the hallway. The man on the floor raised his rifle, but Sarah was already moving. She shot the beaker on the burner. The magnesium ignited with a blinding white flash, like a stun grenade. The man on the floor screamed, blinded. The ethanol fumes caught the spark, and a wall of blue fire erupted across the doorway. Sarah retreated through the connecting door to the biology lab, locking it behind her. She could hear them shouting, regrouping. She pulled out her phone. She needed to call the one number she had sworn never to use, the number that would alert Washington that Agent 4 was still alive. She dialed. "This is a dead line. Authorization Echo Sierra 9. I have a compromised educational facility. Hostiles on site. Requesting immediate containment. Location confirmed. ETA, 8 minutes. Hold the line." 8 minutes. An eternity. The glass of the biology lab door shattered. Sarah abandoned the biology lab, sprinting toward the gymnasium. The gym was a kill box. Open space, nowhere to hide. But it had access to the rafters. Bullets chewed up the drywall behind her. They were done being careful. She burst into the gym and scrambled up the maintenance ladder behind the bleachers. She reached the catwalk just as 3 mercenaries burst through the double doors. "She's up high!" one shouted. They opened fire. Bullets sparked off the metal grate of the catwalk. Sarah stayed low, crawling toward the lighting control box. She wasn't trying to shoot them. She was trying to blind them. She reached the panel and slammed the master breakers. The gym plunged into absolute darkness. The shooting stopped. The men were switching to night vision. Sarah knew they would have the advantage now, unless she changed the game. She pulled the fire hose from the reel on the catwalk. It was heavy, intended for electrical fires in the rigging. She aimed the nozzle down into the dark void where the men were standing and twisted the valve. High-pressure water blasted down, hitting the hardwood floor with a deafening roar. What the hell? Sarah wasn't aiming for the men. She was aiming for the high-voltage scoreboard control unit on the wall behind them. The water stream hit the electrical panel. Sparks showered down like fireworks. The panel exploded, sending an arc of electricity through the water pooling on the floor. The mercenaries screamed as the current hit them. It wasn't lethal across the large floor, but it was enough to seize their muscles and drop them. Sarah didn't watch. She ran along the catwalk to the roof access hatch. She needed to get to high ground. She kicked the hatch open and emerged into the cool night air. The roof was flat, covered in gravel. She took a breath, checking her ammo. 3 rounds left. The door to the roof access hatch opened behind her. It wasn't a mercenary. It was Leo. Leo? Sarah lowered her weapon, confused. How did you— You're really good, Leo said. His voice wasn't shaking anymore. He stood straight, his eyes cold and calculating. I didn't think a history teacher could take out a tactical team. Leo, put the gun down. The police are coming. I know, Leo said, stepping closer. That's why we have to hurry. Sarah stared at him. The patterns in the notebook, the complex ciphers, the way he knew exactly where the operation was. You didn't find the notebook, Sarah realized, a chill running deeper than the night air. You wrote it. Leo smiled. It was a terrifying expression on a 16-year-old face. Vance and Gable were sloppy. They were just middlemen. I built the distribution network. I designed the encryption, but they started getting greedy. They wanted to cut me out. Sarah's grip on her gun tightened. So you used me. I needed a cleaner, Leo shrugged. I saw how you watched the room, how you checked the exits. I knew you weren't just a teacher. I figured if I acted the scared kid, you'd take out the trash for me. And you did. Marvelously. You're a child, Sarah said, stepping sideways, looking for cover. I'm a prodigy, Leo corrected. And now you're the patsy. The narrative is simple. The crazy history teacher found out about the ring, killed the principal and the counselor, and then the poor student, well, he was just collateral damage. He raised the gun. Sarah had 3 bullets. He had a full magazine. But he was arrogant. He was talking. Leo, Sarah said softly, you calculated everything. The codes, the timing, the mercenaries. Everything, he bragged. Did you calculate the wind speed? What? Sarah dropped to the gravel. Leo fired, the bullet whizzing over her head. Sarah didn't fire at Leo. She fired at the massive HVAC unit next to him, specifically at the high-pressure coolant line. The copper pipe burst. A cloud of freon gas exploded outward, engulfing Leo. He coughed, stumbling back, blinding him for a split second. Sarah charged. She didn't shoot him. He was a minor. And despite everything, she held to a code. She tackled him, knocking the gun from his hand. They rolled across the gravel. Leo fought with surprising viciousness, clawing at her eyes, but he was no match for a trained operative. Sarah pinned him, wrenching his arm behind his back. It's over, Leo, Sarah shouted. Is it? Leo gasped, his face pressed into the rocks. Look at the parking lot. Sirens wailed in the distance. Blue and red lights reflected off the low clouds. But in the lot below, a black helicopter was descending. My ride is here, Leo laughed. You think I work alone? I'm an asset. A very valuable one. The helicopter's wash kicked up dust and debris from the roof. A side door slid open, and a man with a sniper rifle leaned out. Sarah dragged Leo behind the HVAC unit for cover. A bullet cracked against the metal casing inches from her head. Let me go and they won't kill you, Leo shouted. Walk away, Sarah. Go back to grading papers. Sarah looked at the boy. He was a monster, but he was right. If she held him, they would kill her. If she let him go, she survived. She looked at the notebook, still tucked in her belt. The evidence. I don't run, Sarah said. She grabbed Leo by the collar and hauled him up. You want to be an asset? Let's see how much you're worth. She forced him toward the roof edge, keeping him between her and the sniper. Hold your fire, Leo screamed at the helicopter. Don't shoot. The sniper hesitated. Sarah reached into her pocket and pulled out the encrypted drive, the one with the virus. She jammed it into Leo's pocket. What are you doing? Leo panicked. Giving you a graduation present, Sarah hissed. She shoved Leo forward, away from her, into the open. As the sniper adjusted his aim to take a clear shot at Sarah, she dove off the side of the building. It was a 2-story drop to the dumpster below. She had done it before in training. She hit the trash bags, the impact jarring her teeth, but she rolled out instantly, hitting the pavement running. Above, the helicopter hovered. Leo was waving them down. They weren't shooting at her anymore. They had their asset. Sarah sprinted for the tree line as the helicopter touched down on the roof, picked up Leo, and lifted off into the night. She watched it disappear. She was bruised, bleeding, and exhausted. The police cruisers roared into the parking lot. Officer Miller was gone. Vance was gone. Gable was tied up in the library. Sarah disappeared into the woods. She couldn't be here when the cops arrived. 2 weeks later, the news cycle was relentless. Corruption scandal at Northwood High. Principal Gable was in custody, singing like a bird about a trafficking ring. Vance was found dead in a motel room, loose ends tied up. But the narrative was wrong. The news reported that a brave student, Leo Corwin, had been kidnapped by the ring and was still missing. A tragedy. Sarah sat in a diner 3 towns over. She stirred her black coffee. She was wearing a new wig, blonde bob, and glasses. Her name was now Diane. Her burner phone buzzed. Unknown number. She picked it up. Go. "We analyzed the drive you planted on the boy," a familiar gravelly voice said, her old handler. "It uploaded a tracker the moment he boarded that chopper. We have their location. It's a black site in Nevada. The boy isn't a victim, Sarah. He's a recruit for the Cipher Division." "I know," Sarah said, watching the rain hit the diner window. "He thought he was playing me." "He led us right to them," the handler said. "We're launching a raid tonight. We're taking the whole network down. Good work, Agent." "I'm retired," I reminded him. "You were," the handler corrected, "but we found something else in the boy's files. He wasn't just recruiting, he was hunting. He had a list of targets to liquidate once he had full control." "Am I on it?" "No," the handler said. "You were listed as potential instructor. He liked you, Sarah." Sarah hung up. She looked at the newspaper on the table, a picture of Leo, smiling innocently. She took out a red pen and drew a circle around his face. Then she drew a crosshairs. She put a $10 bill on the table and stood up. She couldn't go back to teaching history. Not anymore. She had a new student to tutor.